We want to welcome you to this next webinar of the Greek Packaging Association. This time we are very excited because our guests coming from UK will present the NEXTLOOPP project. We decided that this is the right time to talk about this exciting research project. And why this is the right time? Because packaging and packaging waste regulation presented last year, 30th of November, in Article 7 refers to the minimum recycled content of PCR for sensitive packaging. Sensitive packaging, I'm reminding that the packaging that for direct food contact with food, animal feed, medicine, and many other interesting products and articles. Why is the right time? Because UK regulation imposes a tax for plastic packaging that contain less than 30% recycled plastic. We are referring to imports in the UK, into the UK, or manufacturing in the UK of 10 tons of or more of finished plastic packaging. And of course, because we have to protect someday the European resources and stop exporting our packaging waste to developing countries. And as a last point, because we have to start one day upcycling the plastic waste and strengthening every part of the value chain. The value chain is dispose, collect, sort, clean, recycle. As I mentioned before, we're very excited because we're in our webinar. The key speaker is Dr. Edward Kosior. Welcome, Edward, and I think I leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you for that kind introduction, and also the opportunity to present the project to your members and to your community. Welcome everybody who is online, and we hope you find this webinar interesting. As Dimitri mentioned, we are closing the loop on food-grade polypropylene packaging, and you'll hear a lot about the details of this project and how we've developed this over the last 3 years. It's a multi-participant project, and all the companies involved, you'll see them in a minute, are committed to closing the loop on food-grade polypropylene. We started this in 2020, and we're now into our 3rd year with approximately 50 organizations. NextTech is a technical consultancy that has multiple projects in the area of recycling post-consumer packaging back to food grade and to other applications. So we all know polypropylene as a material that's used very widely in the packaging sector. Polypropylene is as big as PET, and it's as big as high-density polyethylene in the packaging area. And of course, we usually see it in the form of pots, tubs, and trays. And so this is actually quite important for us because this is really one of the reasons why we can actually bring it back to food grade again. We know, as Dimitri's been saying, that the large brands globally have made commitments to have recycled content. We now have the plastic waste and packaging regulation. We now have targets to reach recycled content. And so this project was set up thinking about the direction that we have to take in order to make a circular economy. And so the project itself has several important aims. First of all, it wants to demonstrate that we can actually make food-grade recycled polypropylene. and also prepare the necessary scientific data and documentation to have the process accredited by EFSA and US FDA and the United Kingdom FSA. And going along with that is the need to introduce some sorting protocols to separate food packaging away from non-food packaging. And our last point was to establish facilities that could actually manufacture this material during the project and also commercially to make this happen on a large scale across Europe initially and globally as well. Quick snapshot of polypropylene. In Europe, we use approximately 10 million tons of polypropylene. Globally, we're using something like 60 million tons each year, and this polypropylene packaging is growing. It's growing because it's a very versatile material. It has high stiffness and low density, which means it's a very efficient packaging material. And this material is widely used in many applications that you will all be familiar with. So looking at how big polypropylene is and how little recycling is going on, it's important that we develop the recycling technologies to take this large volume material and bring it back into the circular economy. And because approximately 75 to 80% of all packaging that's made from polypropylene is food packaging, it's important that we have a food grade recycling process in order to close the loop on this material. So this is really where the project started. Here's the wall of the members of the project, and in our project we have virgin resin companies, we have brand owners, we have recycling organizations, we have technology providers, we have industry associations, and this is really the grouping that can address all the aspects of recycling from beginning to end. And we're really pleased to have the high level of cooperation of all of our members in this project. The basis of the NEXTLOOPP technology is two sets of technologies. The first one that we developed historically was the decontamination technology. We needed to develop a technique that could adequately decontaminate post-consumer polypropylene back to a food grade status. Now, we call this technology pristine. You'll hear more about that a little bit further in the webinar. But once we developed the decontamination technology, we could see that we needed a special way of separating food grade from non-food packaging. And this is where we developed the polyprism sorting technology for separating packaging into those categories. And those two technologies give us the basis for going forward with the NEXTLOOPP concept. First of all, just on separation of materials. This is a topic that is intensely being studied right across the world globally. And there are some important techniques that are being looked at. We will show you the technology we developed on the use of fluorescent markers to separate food from non-food packaging. But it's important to mention that there are concepts like curve code, which is the technology from Filagrade, shown here on this tray, and you can't see it, but on the tray are a series of dots in a curve. So the curvature and the spacing of the dots is a digital mark on the package. So that is a digital watermark. And also the Digimark process of using a code in the print, which requires a high resolution camera to decode the pixels in the print. This is also one that's been developed. And of course, the other one that's coming up now, still in the very early days, is artificial intelligence looking at shape packaging and separating food from non-food packaging in this area. This is probably one of the most promising technologies but it's probably the one that has the most work still to be done on it to bring it to technical reality, to get to the sort of recycling rates that are required. So I know that there are important sorting technologies, but in reality, if we really wanted to separate food packaging from non-food packaging, we could do things very simply. And this is why I emphasize that the design of packaging is really at the heart of any recycling scheme going back to a circular economy. We could, if we decided, make all food packaging natural or white, and non-food packaging could be pastel colors, so the pale pink, the pale blue, the pale green, and so on. And anything that was toxic, for example, things from hazardous chemicals or from the garden products or automotive products, could be packaged in black. And in this way, we could very easily separate food from non-food packaging. That, of course, is a big step. It actually, although it's a very simple step. And this would be another approach to the separation of food packaging, but one that would be completely integrated with the existing technologies. But let me tell you about the technology we've developed and how it performs. The polyprism technology that we mentioned earlier uses invisible fluorescent markers. So you can see in this case, we have sleeves on PET bottles. We have a blue marker and a red marker. In daylight, you don't see anything at all. Yet under ultraviolet light, they change color, and the sorting machines can see the change in color and quickly sort these materials out. The big step here is that we have very high levels of separation and very high levels of purity can be reached in this sorting process. And just to explain this a little bit further, on the left-hand side, you can see a label which is coated with a lacquer with the UV marker in it. In daylight, there is no color, no appearance, so it's invisible during daylight. But under ultraviolet light, and here we have the image on the right-hand side, you can see the various markers we use change color. And what this means is the sorting machines that we currently use for sorting plastics using color can actually see the change in color and can actually select and separate the packaging. This means we only need two things to make this process work. We need an ultraviolet light inside existing machines, and we need a label that has a fluorescent marker on it. Thereafter, the whole process will work in all the existing machines. And this is why we developed fluorescent markers. We don't need a new generation of equipment or hardware. We just simply add a label with a fluorescent marker and add an ultraviolet light to enable the sorting to happen. I'm going to show you a video of this working, and you will see how rapidly and accurately we can actually sort these materials. This is done at the Tomra Test Center. So we've got mixtures of packaging, both food and non-food packaging. And here we're looking at how do we separate these two materials. You'll see the blue line in the middle of the screen. That is the ultraviolet light scanning the belt, looking for the fluorescent marker on the package. Once the marker is identified, the machine will eject the part. So this is done at full speed without any delay. And in our first step, we can get greater than 99% separation efficiency between food and non-food. If we do two steps, we will get 99.9. Here is the data. This is in detail. You'll get this as a webinar package later, and you'll be able to see the information. But in some cases, we're getting 100% separation. It does depend a bit on the shape of the pack, but nonetheless, we're in the area of 99% separation in the first trial. We've had lots of support on this, and there's been publicity on the project. The project has been very successful in reaching its technical goals. and you will find information about this. We want to say a little bit more about some of the other work that we're doing with our fluorescent markers. We're all very familiar with QR codes on packaging. For example, on the left, the QR codes can be used to identify a web address or a particular link to the package. We also can make an invisible QR code, and this can be read under ultraviolet light, so that we can actually check packages for traceability, perhaps for authenticity, and also can embed information on recycled content and so on. So we can use invisible QR codes, which is something which brand owners can exploit. And of course, this is something which would be at the an opportunity for brand owners to use invisible QR codes. We've also used our invisible codes to separate extrusion from injection molded products. Now, this is really quite important because in the separation of packaging, we want to separate food from non-food, but we also want to create various grades of material. The injection molding industry want high melt index materials, the extrusion industry and the film industry want low melt index materials. So we can actually create markers for each product stream. So they can all be tagged as food grade. But we can also have other markers present so that we can actually separate out the injection molding from the extrusion grade. So here's a little graphic showing how we would do that. First step would be to separate out all the food grade materials, both injection molded and extrusion. And the second step would separate those two materials out. So here's what we've done. So some of the packages like the trays and bottles are labeled with a particular marker. And then we have a injection molded item, which is much higher melt index. It has the food marker and also has another marker added to it to separate out the two materials. And when we've done this in our trial work, we're getting very high selectivity, something of the order of close to 100%. All the packages are identified as food grade, and the separation between food and non-food is typically of the area of 98%. That's a fantastic result because it allows us to close the loop on trays and close the loop on injection molding materials without compromise. And this allows us to reach higher rates of inclusion when we're putting recycled content in there. This is probably one of the leading areas for separation of grades, and you will see more publicity coming out on this point in a short time. But let me come back to the production of the resins. And of course, to produce a resin, not only do you need to separate food from non-food, you must also have a decontamination process to separate the packaging. Here you can see in the image the materials we've been working on. The project has converted something like 40 tons of packaging material, and we have put this through our decontamination process. Now here you can see the decontamination results. So I'll explain this slide. What we do is we conduct a challenge test where we deliberately add chemicals to a batch of material which we put through our decontamination process. And in this case, we've used 6 different chemicals. You can see the decontamination rates in the circles, that for the solvents like toluene, chlorobenzene, we're getting 100%. And for phenylcyclohexane, benzophenone, we're getting typically 99+%. And for hexyl salicylate and isopropyl myristate, we're in the order of 95 to 97%. Now, this is telling us that the decontamination rate of the process is extremely high for a very wide range of chemicals. And this allows us to be confident about the decontamination process for the normal feedstocks, because these materials are very highly contaminated with these chemicals. So we know when we encounter lower levels of contaminants, we can be very sure about the final residual materials. Just to say a bit about the decontamination technology, it's a two-step process. We decontaminate in the melt phase and also in the solid phase. So these things are really quite important. And this is how we can achieve a very high level of decontamination. So this plot that I'm going to show you now is a little bit of a spectrum from our scientific analysis of the material. On the left-hand side, we can see polypropylene flake. The lines you see on the graph in this area represent compounds. So each little peak here represents a different chemical compound. And this is before we actually put it through the decontamination process. After the decontamination process, you can see that we have no peaks at all. And we have two grades here, one called our food grade pristine, and this one below is inert grade pristine. What is the difference between the two? The top one is, the bottom one is the non-food packaging. Now, chemically, we can see that these materials have been very efficiently decontaminated to the same extent. And it's really quite important to know that that even if we get one package that is from the non-food into the food spectrum, we get full decontamination of the material. And this is the same sort of information on white flake and colored flake going to the resin. So these are the food grade resins. So chemically, these materials are extremely clean and fully decontaminated. And of course, we have done a major study on the flakes that are going into the process to be really sure about the composition and the level of contaminants in the product. We've published this work recently. This was able to tell us the level of contaminants in the polypropylene feed stream is extremely low. It's approximately 10 times less than HDPE and something like 30 times less than that, or 100 times less than PET. And that's primarily because polypropylene is made in pots, tubs, and trays, not in bottles. And that means the opportunity for contamination from products is extremely low. But it's important to give us the scientific data in order to do that. In our project, we've made all of the materials. We've made natural, white, and colored material, mixed colored material in food grade, and the same in what we call our inert grade. So we've got all these various categories, and those products have been distributed to our members who wanted to take these materials and test them. So here are the data sheets and the MSDS for the resins. And I'll also mention that one of our member companies, INEOS, is making what we call hybrid blends of recycled and virgin material, which have been tailored to specific end properties. So, for example, one of our targets was to have high melt index and high toughness. And we can achieve this through a very structured blend. And so we can actually target the properties of any application through the right sort of blending approach. So that's been very successful in this work. Just also mention that the NEXTLOOPP process has submitted its dossier to US FDA and to the food standards in the United Kingdom, and also registered as a novel technology with EFSA. So we're well on the way for getting feedback from those organizations and approval for the process. Just to say a little bit about some of the developments in technology that we've been working on alongside the process. We've had the opportunity to really focus on design for recycling. And so in our project, we are really keen to have the purest material. And I'm just showing you some of the work that's been done on removal of labels. You can see here a label that comes off in hot water, and you can see that just by simple immersion in hot water, we can actually remove a label. The advantage of this technology is we remove the label, which has the fluorescent marker on it. We also take off the adhesive at the same time, and we also remove inks. So we remove any potential sources of contamination coming from materials like labels, which are very often not thought of. Adhesives also are a potential area of interest. So we in this way, we can make very pure materials. Some of the other developments that we've worked on have been the development of very novel in-mold label technologies, where the in-mold label can actually separate out from the pack. And in-mold labels are very widely used in polypropylene for injection molding applications. And in working with MCC Verstraat, we've helped validate that these materials can be used and we can get separation. And also we can show that we can make fluorescent markers on the in-mold labels as well. So this has gone to a really advanced extent so that we can confidently make fluorescent marker in-mold labels and have them separated before the recycling process is completed. We've also been developing in this area new methods of washing. So on the left-hand side, you can see what happens when you use conventional hot washing with labels and inks, and when you convert it to the resin, you end up with coloration. However, we've taken that same material on the left, put it through an advanced cleaning step where the flakes are really well cleaned, and we can remove inks, labels, and we end up with a much higher quality material with a much better color control. The products that we've been using, the resins that we've made, have been used in a wide range of applications. Something like 50 trials have taken place. Here's just a quick snapshot of some of them using the natural materials or the white materials and converting them into products. And so we've had quite a lot of success in all of these trials. One important thing that we always ask our converters, is there any odor? Is there any fuming? And the answer is there's no odor with these materials, and there is less fuming than virgin, because the decontamination process extracts all of these materials as part of the process. So these materials are delightfully odor-free, which means they're migration-free, which emphasizes that they're suitable for food. Just in terms of our approach, we've been making these resins, we've been trialing the products, we've had great success in injection molding and extrusion. We do recommend these materials get used in blends, so typically targeting 30% and perhaps 50%. There have been some applications going for 100%, but I do mention that recycled PP is only in its beginning days, and we get better control of the final properties when we create a blend between a virgin and a recycled material. So this is why we're recommending blends rather than trying to go for 100%. The inert grades I mentioned earlier, they are made from mixtures of food and non-food packaging, all very highly decontaminated, but they can be used in cosmetic applications and automotive applications as well, where low VOC and low migration is required. So this means that the recyclers can not only make food grade, they can also make the high quality inert grade material and get value from those products. Some of our members have been coming out saying about how the project's been run. We meet every 2 months. We share the developments and the updates with the whole group. We make usually a lot of progress each 2 months, and then we feed that back into our members. And of course, they are involved in the manufacturing of the products as well. So we've had great feedback from them. Companies, in this case, Viridor, our recycling partner. We've got other packaging companies who are all heading in this direction. So also, I should mention, the technology has won many awards. The World Packaging Organization, we won the award for packaging excellence in 2022. So we're particularly proud for that connection with the World Packaging Organization. And of course, we've won this under other multiple sustainability awards. So thank you for those organizations for recognizing the work we've been doing. We've been putting forward media releases about the various steps that we've been taking in the project. You will see this from time to time. We like to keep the wider community informed about our work and all of the things that are happening inside the project. Certainly, if you have any interest in this, we're happy to talk to you about this. Again, some more media coverage about some of the members who were joining and what they're doing inside the project. One of the big values of the project is that we're able to bring companies from right across the spectrum, so that when we actually need to do any step, whether it be a label or a printing or a testing protocol or sorting or extrusion, all of those objectives can be delivered by the members. And so we can use this in lots of applications, especially in sheet, thermoforming, and film applications. And we also have the opportunity for companies to become licensees of the technology to manufacture food-grade recycled PP and inert-grade PP. So we do have lots of companies who come and talk to us about this. We welcome any organizations who want to join the NEXTLOOPP project. Then they can get the benefits of the recycled content and the lower carbon footprint of the recycled resins. And also they can be part of the demonstrations that are important for a company to learn what recycled materials look like, how they process, and how they can actually be incorporated into their next product range. So in this project, we have a number of objectives in 2023, which we've been busy delivering. I just thought we'd summarize some of them here. We are, of course, working on the food grade compliance with the food safety authorities. We've also been working on artificial intelligence for sorting systems. I've mentioned the cleaning technologies that we've been using. We're developing those. We've also got the IML technologies that we've been working on. They've certainly been very important. We've also developing new markers, which are based on very simple materials to drop the cost of the markers, and also working on manufacturing more material for our members so they can actually develop more products and test more products, and also developing licensees across the various locations. So in a short while, we'll be launching NEXTLOOPP Americas so that we can actually have more active projects in that sphere. So that's the end of my presentation, and I hope you found it useful and interesting, and happy to pass back to Dimitri, and we can go open up for Q&A when you're ready.
We would like to thank you very much indeed for this presentation. It was, we learned a lot of new processes. I have many questions. There are, of course, some questions in the Q&A inbox. And we encourage the audience to add more questions. I have noted that it is a very clever idea to separate the polypropylene used in extrusion thermoforming and the injection molded polypropylene. since the MFI is there is a huge difference in the MFI. I have good experience in both materials, and also the additives incorporated in these products are quite different in these processes. So yeah, it's I really like this approach, because actually you are able to deliver polypropylene with very close MFI to the virgin stock material. This is very,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
very positive.
Yeah, this is a new development which we've been wanting to work on, and we've been able to demonstrate this is a very effective way of doing this. So far, no one has been able to do it. So the marker system is very easy to apply and has very high precision, and it runs at very high speed. And that's a big plus for recyclers. We can't have slow processes. So this has really been our goal. What we're trying to do is create a second life for polypropylene. So this material, once it's recovered and decontaminated, can go back to use again in polypropylene packaging. And for many of our applications, we simply create a blend. Let's say if it's a 30% blend or a 50% blend, we just take the two materials, put them together, and it makes a new product. And so we don't need to use any additives or any other pre-compounding steps. And that we've been very successful in many of these applications.
So I suppose that the 30% blend will be quite famous in UK, according to the, yeah.
That's right.
And how do you certify? You have some a mass balance approach that you certify. I don't know yeah.
The certification for recycled content is very straightforward. It's just simply done, as you say, on mass balance, on documentation. You don't need to have anything else that's required for this, other than to show the source of the material and show it going into the finished product. So it can be done very readily.
More questions are coming, but I want to place another one question. Fluorescent markers, according to my experience, this is the first level we used in printing inks for when we're developing anti-counterfeit inks, and so
Yes.
in also in that level you need to sign some NDA documents, because you got to have the license to use these special markers. Is it right?
Yeah, so what we would have is companies joining the NEXTLOOPP project so that they would be able to have access to the inks. The inks are going to be tightly controlled so that they would only be used by authorized brand owners. So we would manufacture the ink and send it to the companies who are doing the printing of the labels. And of course, it's very interesting when you print a label with an invisible marker, you can't see what you're printing. So you need a special setup so you can actually see what you're printing. So there's a whole technology package that has to come along with fluorescent markers. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it is a special technology.
Yes.
Using this, it's not an easy process.
Well, it's easy, but it's not simple. So
it's not simple.
There's a lot of science behind it. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, printing is easy. So once we make the ink, we can print as normal, and we put it onto a container, and sorting is easy. But to get to the stage of designing this scientifically to work has taken a lot of work, but we're pleased to say it works extremely well.
Another one note is that it's very positive that you are expecting the feedback of FDA and European Food Safety Authorities. I think that Of course, Europe is more bureaucratic, so
Yeah.
I estimate that you will launch first your technology in US, as,
Well,
as, as, as always.
Let's talk about approvals. So the European Food Safety Authority has just changed its regulations. So it has a new procedure for approval of recycled plastics in food, in direct food contact. So that's new 16/16/2022 regulation. And this basically spells out that a company can go to market provided they have completed all of the preconditions for going to market as a novel technology. What this involves is, first of all, a declaration of compliance, which is a bit like preparing a whole dossier. And then you have to collect data on your incoming material and your outgoing product. And you have to have this made available on a public website. Now, we are all waiting for EFSA to come back with the next steps. They've made the declaration, but they haven't started the process yet. And once the process is started, it could take between, it will take at least 2 years of data collection. And then they have about 2 years for assessing the process. So the word is it could take between 5 and 7 years for approval by this new process, which is really not very welcoming by the business world. No one can wait 5 to 7 years for the approval of a process. I think here bureaucracy has created a problem for the circular economy. We need to hurry with the circular economy, not be so slow. Anyway, that's something which is out of my control. We can make comment on it, but it really does need change at the top level within the European Commission. But anyway, that's a topic which can go on for a long time, but it is a difficult one.
And
now, I noticed
we have to note that the packaging waste regulation imposes, or at least proposes, a minimum recycled content in sensitive and non-sensitive packaging. And for sensitive packaging, since there are not technologies available for PP, RPP food grade, this is an issue.
Correct. And if the novel technology is approved to go forward, which can happen in a relatively short time, then it can be put on the market. So it needs to be approved first as a novel technology, and then it can go on the market and the data collection keeps going. So it could be available, but the process has to be initiated by EFSA. And at the moment, there are no initiatives coming forward on the novel technologies. So we're waiting. So it's feasible to do it in time.
Okay. I think that we can read, of course, the questions coming from the audience. The first question is, have you looked at recycling cosmetic bottles made from polypropylene or cosmetic tubes made from polypropylene? This is another interesting area.
Okay.
Yep.
So let me make a comment on this. So remember, the target here is to recycle food grade packaging back to food grade. That's our target. And so what we do, we separate food from non-food, and we put the cosmetics on the side, or the non-food packaging on the side. So our process can make food grade. Now, the material that is put to the side as non-food, when we put that material through the recycling process, we make a very pure material, very decontaminated. This is what we call our inert grade. Now, that inert grade can go back into cosmetics and automotive and other applications where migration is very important. Now, the question is, have you looked at these materials? They will be in the non-food fraction along with other non-food materials. We don't specifically look at cosmetics versus, for example, the tub that's used for detergent for the laundry. To us, they're both non-food, and we treat them in the same way. So we do know cosmetics are in there, and they are contact sensitive materials. They have very high specifications. So it's technically very feasible, but we would not separate cosmetics away from, for example, detergent or laundry or other non-food packaging. So hopefully that's a suitable answer for that question.
But we have to mention that the cosmetic market is a high-end market, a high added value product market, and yeah, and of course,
let me make one comment about the cosmetic market. I would love cosmetic manufacturers to make their products in a way that they were designed to be recycled. Too many cosmetic products are made purely for appearance and for use. And then at the end of that use, there is no thought that this product will come back. But this is really the starting point for this industry, because previously they didn't have to look at this. Now they have the chance to look at it. So the cosmetic industry should not just look for recycled resin, but it should look at the design of their packaging to think that this package will come back and be recycled back into the same product. Then we've got real circularity in the thinking as well as in the products.
The DFR, design for recycling guidelines, also is a very popular topic, and according to the regulation, marking from A to E will appear someday, and then the EPR fees will probably reshape the market. Okay, I have to another interesting question. Have you checked for these markets in oily products at high temperature and humidity? This question refers to the functionality of the packaging, of the whole packaging structure.
So let me just make it really clear. We only put markers on labels. We don't put markers in the polymer. So the markers do not come in contact with oily substances at high temperature and humidity. So they are on the outside of the package. The markers themselves are quite durable and can withstand high temperature and humidity. I mean, when we say high temperature, we're probably talking of the order of 40 degrees Celsius, I imagine, and humidity. So they are resistant to those sorts of conditions. And as I mentioned, the issue of in contact with oil doesn't come into it because they are on the label, not inside the resin. So they're not in contact with those materials. So this is a very common misconception that we put markers inside the plastic packaging, which is something we do not do.
So yeah, and I think since I have a small experience of 20 years in the ink industry, in the labels, in the printing of the labels, you can apply an overprint. There are fluorescent pigments that are resistant to UV or radiation and non-resistant to UV radiation and exposure to. So you can use the proper resin in order to increase the heat, oil, grease, or whatever resistance you need. So you just need to formulate a proper structure with maybe an overprint varnish, and then with the proper resins. Okay, from Mr. Papas, we have a question. Polyprism maker has feasibility regarding IML, or only to sleeve and stick labels. I think this question placed before you before you enter in the IML section of your speech, but please.
Yeah, so we have shown we can put the marker on IMLs very successfully. I did mention this in the presentation. So we can make a removable IML with a marker. So this is quite revolutionary because it means we can prepare the IMLs ahead of time. And of course, they'll be applied during the molding process. And they work fully functioning as markers. So it can be worked on IMLs, sleeves, and stick-on labels. It can work on all of them. Yeah, It's quite comprehensive. We've done all this work. It works perfectly well.
So, yeah, I have to, before proceeding, I have to make a comment. It's very, very positive that you have complete your homework on the NEAS section, because NEAS is a tricky situation in highly contaminated food packaging. And you have presented LCMS analysis, I suppose. So, with the second sorting, you are able to assure that 99.9 sorting has been succeeded. And have you gone down to the famous 50 parts per billion limit proposed by EFSA?
So EFSA have a limit on the level that can be ingested by its citizens, and so there's a level which is 0.0025 micrograms per kilo of body weight per day. So the actual level of ingestion is lower for an infant or a toddler or adult. So we always take the critical case, and that is of a child. And so we can meet all of the requirements for EFSA down to the lowest level. And of course, what you have to do is you have to look at the package and the application. So if you're looking at a meat tray or a tray for food, you have to look at the worst case. And so you have to look at how long is that food will it be in contact with the tray? What is the migration behavior of that food type? Is it oily? Is it aqueous? Is it acidic? And so on. So we have covered all those scenarios. So we meet the requirements in both aqueous, acidic, and oily environments. And we have specified this at temperatures below 60 Celsius because we're not going to temperatures above that for these applications. And it's important for us to put those limitations there. Now, these limitations are based on the assumption by EFSA that the product contains mutagenic materials. Now, we have tested our materials for mutagenicity. I didn't present the results here, but we have done this in a novel technology coming out of Austrian Research Center, which uses a modified Ames test. And this modified Ames test can detect if there's any mutagenicity present in the material. And all our materials come up with a null result. So in other words, no mutagenicity compounds present. What that means is if you take out the concept that the EFSA assumption that it has mutagenic compounds present, then the level of migration greatly increases. In other words, the threshold increases. But that means this material has been shown to be safe even in the test for mutagenicity, which EFSA at the moment don't recognize. This is one of the problems with EFSA. They're using data from the last century, from the 2000s, and they're not using data from the modern world. And they really need to catch up with modern analytical techniques and modern approaches. They need to reset the baselines for contamination levels and thinking. But at the moment, they are well behind the rest of industry in their approach. So I'd be encouraging them to sort of re-look at this and update their techniques. So we've had a very close look at these levels, and we comply. We put limits on the applications. So we're not talking about microwaving foods and things like that. In fact, the new regulations don't permit microwaving with recycled materials. So we put the limits where it makes sense.
And thank you for noticing that for babies, for baby foods, for toddlers, we have to use not the classical approach of 1 kilo with a mean body weight of 60. But we have to use some other factors, and this is very important for some sensitive consumers. So I have another question from Mrs. Papadopoulou. How the converter or brand owner will be able to prove the the content of recycled polypropylene food grade at the packages? Yes.
So this is very straightforward. So we would recommend companies use the Recyclass technique for traceability. The Recyclass technique shows companies how to document their material, where it comes from, how it's put into the package. This is really not a difficult thing. If we ask the question, how can you prove this? You can't prove it by chemical analysis because there's no difference between the recycled PP and the other PP. You have to use logging techniques to log the material coming in and going into the product. This is quite conventional, and of course, companies that do this and do it accurately and properly will be the ones who will be able to validate their process. And of course, you'd be crazy to play around with those sorts of claims, especially in food packaging. So I know the question is, how do you prove it? You have to prove it by quite conventional techniques, and we'd recommend the Recyclass traceability protocol for validating that.
Okay, I think we are on the same page because our association is supporting Recyclass in Europe, and we are presenting to our members every week new facts and new ideas from that scientific community. I can place a few more questions since the time is running up. Of course, we will send you the questions, and we will be happy to open the link between our members and our scientific society to NEXTLOOPP. This is of course one of the key facts. Is your petition to US FDA, UK FCA and EFSA, did you only include packaging with fluorescent markers?
So the petition to those safety authorities regards the process of taking food packaging and putting it into the process. We are happy to take sorted material from any technology, whether it be digital watermarks or fluorescent markers or whatever. So we haven't restricted any sorting technologies prior to the decontamination process. So we made this general, and we've specified only food packaging going in and then applying the decontamination processes to those materials. So it's very straightforward. It's open.
Two more questions. Very shortly, can you share anything on the progress of sorting using artificial intelligence without markers? I think if somebody is interested, we can create a link with you. And yeah.
So let me quickly say, AI without markers is starting to be done, but the level of identification is relatively low. So by that I mean, when you start sorting packaging, it will, for example, if it looks for a tray, it can see a tray, but if the tray is bent over, it may not recognize it. So you have to teach the machine time and time again. It takes 3,000 iterations for one object, for one SKU. So for every SKU, you have to teach the machine 3,000 times what it could look like in order to get reasonable sorting. So you can imagine this does take a lot of time and effort and learning to teach a machine to do this. So it's a goal that people are aiming for, but we're probably 5 years away from this being sensible or useful. Hopefully we can do that, but it's not simple. So if you use AI, the yields will be low. So when you use our markers, Our purity levels are greater than 99%. Our yields are very high, so they're over 95%. So we have a system that works now, so we can start recycling now. And that's the whole focus. We need to be circular now. We can't wait until for the perfect system. We have to start with what we have. And it's like everything else. Technology improves, well, we switch to the better technology when it's available and proven. So we need to keep pressing forward.
And one last question, and all the others will we will send it to your email, of course. Why to use it if EFSA does not approve? What are the benefits for brand owners? I can start with my comments. Okay, maybe EFSA will approval would be late, but for those who are interested in the UK market or for the market in US, it will be quite challenging. I think the US and the UK market, if you sum them up, are bigger than the European market. But I think that we have to start at one point. If what are your comments, Edward?
I absolutely agree with you, Dimitri, that we have to start somewhere. If we didn't start the project to validate that we can make a food-grade PP, then we would be paralyzed from working in this area. By starting the work, we've discovered many things. When we discovered challenges, we overcame the challenges. And so we've developed new technologies along the way. So this has been a huge benefit to run the project. And of course, we can already make the inert grade materials. So there are many applications where we do need low VOC, low migration materials. And of course, there will be markets in the US and UK. Yes, that's true. But we also, under novel technology, will be able to offer materials in Europe prior to the full assessment by EFSA. The new process maps this out. So if somebody wants to look at the new EFSA regulation, 1616/2022, please have a look at it. You will see the pathway is there. So you basically can put something on the market, provided you take full responsibility, and it will take time for EFSA to come to its decision. So EFSA, in a way, is providing a pathway to step aside while all the work is being done. But what it means is you have to be really confident about your process. And that's why we have been doing a lot of scientific work, a lot of measurements, a lot of analysis, characterizing the material, making sure it is what we want it to be, which is food grade compliant to EFSA conditions. And, you know, I give you the example, EFSA, how do EFSA operate? They work on what might call the precautionary principle. They talk about what if the worst things can happen. In the US, they are much more direct, and they say, we have a level of detection. We work to a level of safety, which they define, and they say, here's the regulation. With EFSA, they're worried about materials that we cannot measure. So that's why we've developed techniques where we measure for example, the presence of genotoxicity by using non-analytical techniques, but biological techniques, which is the Ames test. So this is really where EFSA needs to catch up with the techniques that are now emerging. And also, I think we also should be challenging the assumptions of EFSA, because they keep saying we have to imagine the worst case, but the worst case is not statistically the reality. So we would be saying, let's characterize the reality of the rate of contamination of polypropylene packaging. We've already done this. We've done the calculations. We've put this into our submissions. So, but EFSA need to catch up on these topics and relook at this. So it's a topic that can go on for a long time, but I don't want to spend the rest of the time just on that topic. But Dimitri, thank you for the questions, and of course, if any companies have further questions, you can please provide them with our contact details. We'd be happy to on with them?
We want to thank you for accepting our invitation. It was very, very interesting, many data. We have now many inputs from your side. And of course, we will share the presentation to our members and to our partners. And we will be happy to open the link between your very challenging project. And we have just to keep in mind that the holy grail was not discovered in 1 week. It takes many years to create the data supporting files in order to present to the market safe for the consumers recycled polypropylene. Thank you, Edward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we thank the audience, and we can close this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you to the audience for participating and listening. Thank you.